listens to a podcast that's been described as
emotional
and
terrifying.
one guy even said it was
So awesome it will shock you to the core.
finally another podcast about Godzilla and all his giant monster friends.
This could be the end of civilization.
Yeah, probably. So join your hosts, KES and Slick.
Ladies and gentlemen,
You're listening to the podcast from Odo Island. Welcome to the podcast from Odo Island. Follow us on the old internet at Odo Island Pod. I am KES, and with me, as always, is someone who everything he tells you is true from a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view.
Throwback from a inside reference we were talking about earlier. Slick, what's going on? What's going on, man? How are you?
Hiya, Cass. Good to be here with you. Not much. Bit of a slow week in the Godzilla world.
Yeah.
Nothing big happening. No big announcements.
Yeah.
So we're just here talking about a North Korean propaganda film.
Is it propaganda or is it just fucking...
Oh, it's totally propaganda. Totally.
Is it just like what they do?
Well, I mean, what they do is propaganda, so it's all one and the same.
But before we get to that,
They being the North Korean government.
I totally understand.
Yes.
We'll get there. Old Pulgasari.
Yeah.
But before we get there, lay it on me. What happened this week? Anything?
Oh, well, where do we start?
Well, I heard there was something about a Godzilla store.
There was yes, the U.S. is getting its own version of the Godzilla store. That's very exciting.
Before we get to that, I'm teeing you
Yes.
up for like all the stuff that people don't want to hear about.
And then there was Ultraman Day was also this week. That was exciting. Pluto TV played some Ultraman stage shows that you don't see too often. Also, the Pluto TV Godzilla channel launched. That's been very fun to have on the background.
Definitely.
And then a trailer dropped for a new Godzilla movie.
Oh yeah, the leader of the Dark Order.
So Godzilla Minus One is out. Our reactions. You go first.
Like hook it to my veins.
Yeah.
I guess is the best way to describe it. So you only get like a few glimpses of Godzilla. You don't get to see the full.
Oh, wait.
Full Monty.
We should also probably say, so we're recording on Wednesday right now because I'm going to G-Fest this weekend. So we got to record. So we're going to only say what's available to us right now on Wednesday.
Just the trailer.
July 12th. Just the trailer, but did you see in our group chat? The full design's out, like officially
I've
out.
seen the full design. I'm just talking about strictly the trailer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you only get to see his tail swiping, and then you see him like stomping the ground, and the ground's like lifting up because he's so heavy.
Yeah.
And then you see his big old mouth just destroying a train. What we think is a train.
Probably a train, yeah.
Because Godzilla in trains.
Yes. It with like a little narrative that says, basically like after the war, it was like Tokyo or Japan was reduced to nothing or something to that effect. And then,
and now it's even lower.
And now it's even lower. Now it's -1. And I was like, interesting. But looks like it's set in 1947. Japan is what seems to be the consensus. So either way, it's early post-war Japan. That's kind of a cool, unique setting.
I'm just wondering. So this can't tie into like any other Godzilla movies, then?
I think there are some confirmed. Yeah, no, I think the director said that this is like the start of a new timeline.
Yeah.
So
that's what I mean. Like since it's before 54, like.
Yeah. No, this is
unless you're like everyone who saw it happen is no longer living and couldn't report on it, and like nobody knew. It was just like a complete and total devastation, and then Godzilla was not seen again for 7 years. Like they can't possibly line up.
No, there's some. I mean, again, right now it's so early. There's so many like unconfirmed reports and confirmed reports, but it sounds like the idea would be that like this could be the starting point of a new. Not like won't necessarily be a standalone. Like it could be the start of like a new timeline, kind of branching off from here. I mean, I remember like right before the trailer dropped, or around the time the trailer was dropping, Also, we should also quick sidebar with the trailer. We for the past the past month we've been getting a countdown on the official Godzilla, the Godzilla Minus One Twitter, where it was like just kind of counting down like all the Japanese Godzilla movies. And then it was like, okay, we're gonna get the trailer drop now, and then when it got to 0, it was just like an announcement of another countdown. Granted, just for like 10 more hours, but it was like the countdown teaser led to the launch of another countdown teaser, but just like a 10-hour one. I thought it was funny. I just kind of chuckled.
It's like when you're a band and you say big announcement coming.
Yeah, I can't wait to tell you guys about this thing that I've been working on. So excited to share it. But in this one, this did live up to the hype, though.
Yeah.
But there was like one initial report that was like quickly debunked that it was going to be tied to Shin Godzilla, but that was confirmed that it's not tied to Shin Godzilla, which is good. I always think Shin Godzilla should be a standalone.
If you took a look at Godzilla, and you would know, just from looking at Godzilla, it's not related to Shin Godzilla.
Yeah, and I personally, I think Shin Godzilla is just like, if Shin Godzilla is going to be tied to anything, it should be tied to Shin Ultraman and Shin Kamen Rider. Yes. But I think Shin Godzilla should just kind of be its own thing, in my opinion.
What would have worked in those movies is if, like, in the background of Tokyo somewhere, you just saw like frozen Godzilla just standing there.
I think there was actually a plan to do that in Shin Ultraman.
Yeah,
but then there was like a rights, or it was going to be like too much of like a headache to like get that approved.
Couldn't even just do like the silhouette.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, it starts with Shin Godzilla, like, and then the Shin Ultraman title card burst through. But
what was the movie that the silhouette was in? When the kid was on the roller coaster and like, oh, there's Godzilla.
Oh, when they did like Godzilla versus Hedorah.
That's okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so we get this trailer, like, just 30 seconds long. That like ominous narrative, pretty much a 1/3 reveal the Godzilla design. I fucking love that Godzilla design. What do you think of it?
Looks very legendary.
Yeah,
in the face.
Yeah.
The spikes look cool. I don't know. I haven't seen the full design in use yet. I've only seen the picture and the logo, and I've seen the trailer stuff, and that's pretty much it.
So wait, did you see the merchandise drops that I put in our group chat?
Oh, I woke up at 4:00 today.
So these aren't like leaked merchandise. Like, this is like they did like official, like the official Godzilla Twitter did the official merchandise drops, which has the full design in it. So here I'll pull up, and there you go.
I'm also looking at that right now. Yeah.
So it is pretty much like,
he looks very legendary.
He's
just like, it's like if Legendary had even bigger spines that looked even like more like they're kind of almost like a combination between like the original and like the Millennium.
Have you seen the Godzilla the Ride clip where he fights like King Ghidorah and Rodan? I mean, it's very, very, very similar to that sign, which I do feel like is like a marriage of like classic 90s Godzilla mixed with like legendary. It feels like it's like a smashing of the two in a way.
Yeah, and he's got the jaw of Ultima.
And it's also the director that is doing this movie, I think he also directed Godzilla the Ride. He also did a movie called Always Sunset on 3rd Street, back in the day. And like he had like,
well, just the Godzilla part.
Yeah, so like it feels like it's like an evolution of like that Godzilla design that he used in that movie kind of turned into Godzilla the Ride, kind of mixes like I agree with you. Like there's a lot of like legendary elements to it.
In the face.
Yeah. And I think the bulky body kind of gives me it's a good mix, I feel like.
I feel like the thick lower body is more Shin than anything, or Shin or Ultima.
Yeah.
And like I said, the jaw, like he looks like he can almost have like a snake detached jaw type of situation going on when he bit the train.
Oh,
so that's like Ultima. So I'm like, this is kind of a good combination of different ideas all coming together to make a pretty sweet looking Godzilla design.
Now, Cass, it's a cosmetic business. It's a visual business. This is a Godzilla that can represent your business. Be the face, your business.
It's got the it factor.
Little corny wrestling talk there for you. Because I was looking at this going like, all right.
It looks like a goddamn kaiju.
Like, Shin Godzilla is a fantastic design, but Shin Godzilla is also like a nightmare zombie kaiju. Whereas, like, this is
like
something...
a malformed beast.
Yeah, and, well, I can confirm there is a giant statue of Shin Godzilla in the middle of Tokyo. Like, this is a much more, I feel like, classic design that you can kind of use. This is, like, a good face of your franchise going forward. Like, this is...
totally.
This is not going to scare the children all too much.
They should be scared of Godzilla.
But they should be,
Godzilla does not care about you children.
That's right. That's right. I mean, go watch the 54 movie. You clearly
Gamera
don't care
is your friend.
Yeah. Go run to that turtle, kids. But, I mean, I'm pumped for this. I'm pumped for I like the, taking it. It's cool to have a movie that's like going back to like the late 40s, early 50s type aesthetic. It's a nice change of pace.
It seems like a very dark and it's just going to be a lot of misery involved in this. I feel like it's going to be a total contrast to what Legendary is doing.
Yeah,
which I feel is going to be just more action-packed, lighthearted, good old time like popcorn movie stuff.
100%. 100%.
So like it's going to be real nice to have like two completely contrasting Godzilla movies released within 6 months of each other.
Yeah, that's like what I've always said I loved about this, like back and forth between like Legendary and Toho, like is that like it's
really
like,
within 4 months of each other.
Oh yeah, right. Because So we haven't gotten to that part yet.
December 1st is
for us
here
for us
in the US, and then in March we get Godzilla and Kong.
Yeah, and it's like we got Shin Godzilla and King of the Monsters like in the same year, right? They both were 2016, right?
No, King of the Monsters was 2019.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Shin Godzilla was 2016.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. But either way, like having like those things like go kind of back and forth, like, I love that like the Legendary stuff is like the lighthearted, they
did try to make it more serious, but I think after a while they realized
they figured it out.
Yeah.
I think they figured it out.
They realized if they want to make Godzilla like a standalone movie, they can have it be dark and mysterious, but if they want to draw the crowds, I think if they're going to have a bunch of other monsters and these things, that they need to make it a little bit more like tone it down a little bit with the seriousness and make it more like stuff that like anyone of all ages can approach. And I think when they do like the PG-13 style that they've been doing, I think that appeals to most people.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, like it's like funny, like a lot of like most of our friends don't give a shit about like Godzilla and Kong and stuff like that, and whenever like I talk to like some of our like mutual friends or whatever, they bring up like the Legendary movies, they're always kind of like, oh, I really like the Bryan Cranston one, didn't like King of the Monsters, but then I like GVK. And,
which is weird.
And it's like, yeah, like, it's like I feel like 2014, well, we don't need to like revisit like the whole Legendary series, but yeah, it's like ultimately I think GVK, they're just like, this is the path we're going from here on out, a little bit more lighthearted, fun, which is totally fine. That's like, I want that, and I like that we're also getting like this dark shit on the other side. There's gonna be something for everybody.
Yeah,
something for everybody.
And like that was always my complaint, is like there was always like this thing with Godzilla movies where they don't really focus on the action too much. Sometimes I feel like it gets a little too up its own ass with the story and the characters, and then they forget. Oh yeah, this is a Godzilla movie. Oh shit, we forgot. Sorry. And so that's why I always like. That's why I really like GVK. It was just because of the counterbalance it gave, where it was like, no, we're an action movie first, and then we'll worry about story and characters second. And that's not a bad thing, because we have
sometimes that's all you
35 other movies that do it the other way.
Yeah, sometimes that's all you want. You just want a little fun.
Yeah,
that you can just watch, and then sometimes you want something with a little bit of a deeper like meaning or whatever stuff you want to dissect and digest and all that. Like,
and so like when you think about that and you think about, which movie are you more excited for? It's kind of like, well, both really. Like I don't think one's appealing to me more than the other. It's just stylistically they're two different. You're comparing apples to oranges. So I'm looking forward to the apple, and then I'm looking forward to the orange after that.
What I always like find myself doing as like as like this is like my main hobby, is that like I always get like I'm anxious for like both of these movies coming out, going like I'm like, oh god, like I don't want like either one to like be a flop. You know what I mean? Like even though I don't think either one will be flops.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, you know, like when I just sit there and like it was like, oh my god, like if this flops, they're not gonna do any more. Like Toho's not gonna do any more, or if like the legendary one flops, then like they're not gonna do any more legendary ones, and I get all stressed about it, and then they come out and it's fine, and things continue on. So
Yeah.
but like I always like worry about that's like the thing. I worry more about like that aspect of things, and like it's probably not a really grounded. It seems like we're in such a Godzilla renaissance at the moment that I think this Japanese movie is probably going to. I mean, the hype around it is so strong in Japan, like, and they clearly think that like announcing an American date, like a release date, just like, you know, less than a month after like the November 3rd release date, like they gotta feel really good about how it's gonna perform.
Yeah.
Overall,
I think they've noticed how well that the MonsterVerse stuff is done. Like the movie industry as a whole, like doesn't seem to be like doing very well right now.
Yeah.
So this will be a good sort of like just a reminder that like not every week or every month, but like every once in a while you can go to the movies and have yourself a good time.
Yeah. I think the MonsterVerse certainly benefits from not coming out yearly, you know, kind of coming out like every couple of years, whereas like you got like, you know, 3 to 4 Marvel movies a year. Because I mean, I think that is the direct comparison.
It's definitely oversaturated with the Marvel stuff right now.
Yeah, and like DC just can't like get out of their own way. Like, you know, they're just. It's like
it seems like every decision DC makes is the worst possible decision they could make.
It's
like hey, let's make a Flash movie with like the most like awful human being as our main draw. Hey, let's put Michael Keaton in there.
And then let's also announce before the movie comes out that we're basically going to reboot the whole universe after that. Like this movie's going to kind of not really matter from a narrative standpoint.
Right.
So nobody, like you've just told everybody, there's no need to go see this movie because you're basically rebooting your universe outside of the Batman, which is like one of the few good things they've gotten right. But like,
and it's not even part of the DCEU. Yeah, it's just its own standalone thing.
Doesn't it get its own classification as like they have? I feel like they gave the Batman universe like an Elseworlds type.
Oh, I don't know about that.
They were trying to like. I remember like hearing once they were trying to break up like the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movies, the Batman. Like they were trying to categorize them as like different universes.
Yeah,
and I was like, man, you're just like. Just keep making the Batman movies and the Joker movies, and like, you know, you're just confusing your audience, like, and like you haven't been able to get like this universe going, really.
Why do we even need like a universe for that? Like, why can't they just exist in their own like little bubbles?
Yeah. I mean,
what was wrong with that? Like, what was wrong with the Spider-Man movies from the 2000s existing up by themselves?
Right, and then like they could be like you could loosely connect into the X-Men movies that Sony was doing if you ever really had to, but they never had to, and it didn't. You just told better stories that way. I thought, you know,
I get that like you're trying to like make like Marvel really screwed things up by like with the Avengers stuff.
Yeah,
like. Now because now it's like a monkey see, monkey do, where everyone's trying to do it, and that's what's good about the legendary stuff is that like they're not really up their own ass with their stuff. Like they do like every couple years you'll get something.
Yeah,
and it's like the perfect amount of content that you get.
And they're very slowly growing that universe, like like little things, like you know we're gonna get the Apple Plus TV series, like got Skull Island, like. All these, like, you know, just very gradually expanding the world.
Right.
Not churning out, like, 3 movies a year or anything like that. Like
every 2 years you get, like, stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, almost like the perfect... Like, when Star Wars went to, like, every year doing stuff, they kind of oversaturated their market, and then people lost interest. Like, you had, like, the mainline chapters 7, 8, 9... And then you had Solo,
like Rogue One,
Rouge One,
Rouge One,
the old joke. But like, I think after like 5 movies in 5 years, they're like, okay, we're seeing diminishing returns on this because it's just too much content. and people don't want that much.
You know,
People, every 2 years, you're getting the perfect amount of content.
Yeah, it sucked with Star Wars too. Like to your point, because it was like it used to be like, oh shit, like a Star Wars movie's coming out, like that's really special.
Yes.
Like when The Force Awakens was coming out, you're like, that's special.
Well, even when we were kids and like they
Special.
re-released the special editions in theaters, you're like, holy crap, we can go see Star Wars movies in theaters. I'm gonna go see these.
Yeah. And yeah, now it's just I mean, I liked Rogue One a lot. I know you are middle of the road, I think, in Rogue One.
Yeah, it just has its stuff that I didn't like.
Yeah. I actually didn't mind Solo. Like I didn't think Solo was good for like the first like 15 minutes, and then I thought it got good enough. But like Force Awakens, I still think Force Awakens is really, really good. And I think the other two parts of the trilogy are just trash.
I had stronger. Like I liked the last one more when I left because I was like, oh, that was like a fun, exciting thing. And then as I sat down and thought about the movie a little bit, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like a lot of dumb stuff happened. Like I did not like how they killed off Chewie, and then they're like, just kidding, we didn't have the balls to do it. Like I was just like,
I just like waiting for like the next MonsterVerse movie to like have Madison's father pop up. I forget his name. He was always like, Josh, shut up, Josh. Like I'm waiting for him to pop up and go, somehow Ghidorah returned. And that's it. That's what I want before the legendary run is over.
It's like I want Ghidorah back for one more legendary movie, but I don't want it to be like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily just say, "Oh, we found a second Ghidorah in space" or something like that.
Or like something happens with like the skull from the Ghidorah that's remaining, where they like do something to it, and like, or they give it some Godzilla cells, and so he becomes like he like regrows itself, but he's more like Godzilla, like he has the spikes and stuff in the back or something like that. I don't know.
There's a really insane Godzilla manga from the 90s that like tells a variety of like off the wall stories, and like one of them involves like a hybrid, like it's like Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Batra, I think, Baragod. It's like a Godzilla that has like Ghidorah heads for arms and Ghidorah wing or like Rodan wings or something. It's like there's like this 90s manga. There's a couple of them that are just filled with like batshit crazy like one-off stories.
I mean more like think of like Jurassic Park, where they're doing like cloning experiments, and they like,
oh yeah,
let's take some of these Ghidorah cells and see what we can do with it.
They make 3 little Durettes.
Or like they just screw up. You know, the old Jon Stewart joke where it's just like the end of the world happens in a lab with some guy saying oops.
Yeah. that's a classic reference right there.
Yeah, so like do something like that. Like that's a good way to bring Ghidorah back.
Yeah.
Not with like not what you said.
So just setting up for a future episode, we were going to review some wild mangas from the 90s.
Okay. I have glasses now, so I can read.
Yeah, that's good. You are glassed up.
So speaking of that, this is a good segue. We done talking about Minus One?
Yes, we're very excited. We will probably have a lot of news to come. And now we're going to shift gears to good old Pulgasari.
So as we get to that, you want to set the table for this?
Oh boy, I mean that's like the whole point of doing this movie is setting the table.
I'll be back.
Well, did you watch the documentary that I sent
Not
you?
the whole thing, but
okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm more educated on what happened, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. So I know this is like a topic that has been covered many times in great detail.
It's more interesting than the actual movie.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's the whole point of doing Pulgasari, is to kind of hear about like what goes into it. So I'm not gonna do the deepest dive. I'm gonna but I think we'll do our best here. We'll do our best, but also kind of I also want we gotta talk about
that best.
So okay. Pulgasari was directed by a South Korean director named Shin Sang-ok, and it was also had production help from his wife Chu Yeon-hee. I'm going to try to keep those I'm not very good at pronouncing Korean names. I'm going to do my best. Just bear with me. So, so Kim Jong-il he's not supreme leader yet. He's not supreme leader until like 1994. But he has a high up rank. His father's still alive. He has a high up ranking role in the North Korean government. He is a crazy movie fanatic. He has a library, some estimate of about 15,000 movies, and he broke North Korea's own laws, which doesn't apply to him. Where because a lot of Western movies were not allowed in North Korea. Most people in North Korea probably still to this day have never seen a Western movie.
Yeah.
And he had the Rocky movies, the Rambo movies. Was just a huge consumer of just all sorts of films. And he wanted North Korea to become a much bigger player. Well, he wanted North Korea to have its own robust movie industry.
Yes.
And he wanted to be a bigger player by the time Pulgasari comes about on the world stage. So, to put this plan in motion, Kim Jong-il decides to have Shin Sang-ok's ex-wife. She is his ex-wife at the time that she is kidnapped. Chu Yun-hee is kidnapped in 1978 on a trip to China.
Yeah.
Shin goes looking for his ex-wife in China, and then he is kidnapped. So they are both kidnapped in 1978. Chui is put in a she's living in these fancy villas, and they're she's kind of put in luxury, but she is a prisoner.
Yes.
But she's living in comfort while she is going through her re-education, her retraining about how South Korea, the rest of the world are vile, and North Korea is the way to the future. And I saw her give interviews where she talked about, she's I had to just memorize the teaching or the writings of the eternal leader, for hours at a time.
Yeah.
Shin does not get no.
he goes to a prison camp.
He goes to several, and he tries to escape multiple times. And did you see the part about there was one where it's he got in a car and he's driving away, and he's I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it, and then he gets caught, and there's right back you go, buddy.
Yeah, it reminded me of in Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, where Theon tries to escape, and the fucking dude, what's his name?
Reese or Roose? Reese?
No, his name was Reek.
No, the Bolton kid.
Roose Bolton was his dad.
Yeah.
Fuck, what's his name? I don't know, but the kid's a bastard, and he's the worst, and he helps him escape, and then he just brings him up, or he leads him right back to his prison cell.
Yeah.
It's awful, but that's what it reminded me of. It was like that in real life,
and I'm sure that is how it played out. I'm sure that's how it played out. So so they're actually kept away from each other for several years, and then finally they both say
keep in mind, they have kids.
They do have kids. And also what I thought was interesting too is he goes looking for Eun-hee. She's remarried, and just anything I read didn't really touch on what was her new husband doing in this time. Was he looking for her? I mean, they ultimately do remarry Shin and Eun-hee. So I mean, I don't know. That was just a little bit of the. I didn't go looking for it, but I was oh, that's a little weird. Nobody ever talks about what happened to her other husband in this whole situation.
He had a lot on his plate.
Yeah. He's the other guy's doing it, fuck it. So anyway, so they ultimately say, he says after several years, he's all right, I'm re-educated, I'm retrained, I love the dear leader, I'm all good. And they are reunited to each other's surprise. And then they are meeting regular with they start to slowly earn Kim Jong-il's trust. They start making movies. They actually it was interesting because it was they, on one hand, they obviously hated being prisoners. They didn't want to be prisoners. But once they made their first movie, and it was just way a way better production than anything else that North Korean studios were making at the time, they start to get a lot more. They end up having way more creative freedom than they did in South Korea. So they got the ability to make movies with way more creative freedom than they had in South Korea.
So they had no like actual freedom.
Yeah. So it's like they were like, I watched like interviews where they're kind of talking about going like, yeah, like, we are prisoners, but also at the same time too, like we're like creatively like liberated. Like it was like a weird like dichotomy to have. And it was like they built them like a house, like a lavish house that like they could live in that was like behind the studio lot. They were like giving gifts, like expensive gifts randomly and stuff like that. All to kind of like, you are the abuser and you're trying to, continue the brainwashing of the person you're abusing. But like they took the opportunity to like remake movies that they did in South Korea together that like they weren't happy with, and like they took like another shot at them and were happier with them. But on all the same time, North Korea is putting out stories and putting them on TV and basically painting them as saying like, yes, the North Korean way of life is so much better. So they now become painted as traitors in South Korea.
Well, they put them on the world stage and they're like, look, see, these people like it better here because we are better than you. Like,
and they sent them like on like at one point they have to like, when they're going outside of the country to like promote stuff, they're like, yeah, like, you're going to make statements like basically saying like, you were never kidnapped. You came here willingly. And like, and to incentivize that, like, obviously they're always like with like an armed security detail from North Korea the whole time, so they can't escape. But like, they were never allowed to go out together when they were like overseas. Like, one would always go, and the other would always have to kind of remain as like a hostage.
Yeah.
And then like, and then South Korea is now like, all right, you guys are traitors. Like they were effectively, even after they did ultimately flee North Korea, they are disowned by South Korea effectively, which is kind of fucked up. So finally, Kim Jong-il goes, I want my Godzilla movie. This is gonna be it's gonna be the big
budget North Korean blockbuster.
Yeah, Godzilla 85 or Godzilla 84 is out. He wants that. He wants his own kaiju movie. And he tricks Kenpachiro Satsuma, the guy who plays Godzilla. He's the guy that plays Pulgasari in this movie.
Really?
He is told he is filming a movie in China. He does not know he is going to North Korea until he has landed in North Korea. And then he's like, well, I'm fucked. And so he does the movie and they just like, they let him go. But so like, he like, he was like, I would not be going to do this if I knew I was going to do a North Korean movie. I thought I was doing a movie in China. And then he goes, when I get off the plane, I go, this ain't China. And so he's like, well, this part I'm paraphrasing, but I think basically if I want to get out of here alive, I'm doing this movie. And that was apparently a very common practice in the 80s. Like, they wouldn't go as far to like hold people hostage like they did with them.
They just
but it's
deceive them, get them out there in the false pretenses, and then be like, the only way you can ever get back to your life is if you do this.
Yeah, and I read that like in a lot of these movies, especially in the 70s and the 80s, like, some actors are truly there willingly. And then there's like a number of actors that like you don't know if like they're actually performing like under duress, like under the threat of death or imprisonment.
It kind of puts a new light on like Dennis Rodman now. I'm like, is he doing this willingly?
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's a good point, right? Like, I mean, for all we know, he could be we look at it now and go like, oh my god, what a lunatic he is. But at the same time,
he's always been a lunatic.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, like, this is a different type of lunatic, like, yeah, it's a good point. Like, he could be truly like a captive of North Korea for like all we know now. Like, so anyway, Pulgasari is done, but they are already like, they kind of got their eyes out the door going like, all right, we're going to like really try to hatch like our escape plan now. So they go to Vienna to try to get backers for the next movie, which is going to be a giant, big budget production of Genghis Khan. That was the plan. So, while they are in Vienna, like they somehow like they kind of like talk their guards into like basically giving them a little bit more space for appearances, and they hand a note to somebody in their hotel, and then you say, "We are captives. We need to get to the American embassy." And so, they get a cab, to take them to the American embassy, and their security detail realizes they've dipped out, and they start tailing the cab. And when they get to the embassy, they just basically threw all their shit. They didn't take any of their shit. They opened the door. They just booked it into the front door of the embassy, and now they can't be touched. And they ended up actually qualifying for like U.S. Government protection through like the CIA, because after they left, North Korea put a bounty on their heads, which qualifies you for like the government protection at the time. And so, so they moved to America. So, one thing I kind of skipped out is like, when they were meeting with Kim Jong-il, Chewie she had a hidden microphone in her bag, and she would record conversations they had with Kim Jong-il. And at the time, it was like having like clear, candid recordings of him like talking like off script like that was like just didn't exist. And it's like she had like that to kind of like hand over to the American government as well. And that was like a huge to do. So ultimately they relocate to America. They try to go back to South Korea. They're like still like they're questioned often like by the South Korean government and the media, going like, were you really kidnapped? You sure you didn't go willingly? Sure you're not a traitor? And, like they kind of said like, yeah, we kind of felt like we didn't really have a home at that point. Yeah. And so they returned, so they started actually working on movies for Disney in America. And I know for a fact you own 2 movies that were directed by Shin.
Do I?
You do. 3 Ninjas Kick Back and the one that came after 3 Ninjas Kick Back were done by him.
All right. Didn't know that.
So there you go.
All right.
He ultimately does remake Pulgasari in the US in the mid-90s as Galgameth, which I looked up and I said, I have no memory of that movie existing. But apparently came out like 95 or 96 and was basically the same plot. And so I guess kind of like for the last piece before we dive into the actual movie, before they kind of took over and became Shin and Chewie were like the face of like the North Korean movie industry while they were there making movies. Like they were huge celebrities. I like read like one article that compared them to like Orson Welles and like Rita Hayworth, like in terms of like celebrity couple. And I was like, wow, that's a really dated reference that most of our audience won't get, but I'll use it anyway. But that was like how they were, that was like their popularity level. And
who, me?
And what was I going to say to that? So they were the huge celebrities, whatever. Oh, right. So like most movies in North Korea, even though like this shares elements, like they usually ended with like some sort of thanking the eternal leader, for watching over the human character or the main characters or whatever. And like, while Pulgasari still has the standard theme of, it's the farmer class, like rising up against, outside imperial invaders that rule over us and prioritize private wealth over, the greater good and stuff like that. Like, it wasn't as like, you got to thank the eternal leader at the end of the movie, but like that element's still there. So usually it was like, these are movies that are against like, it's either, Japan's invading and, or like American, imperialism, capitalism is creeping in. And, so this still kind of had that theme of like the farmers revolt against, an oppressive ruling class, but a little bit toned down compared to the other movies. And that was by design to try to make it more palatable for the rest of the world. So, and also Kim Jong-il finally thought Pulgasari was a masterpiece. Did we think it was a masterpiece after all that table has been set?
No.
So I have just talked a lot. Why don't you take us through this movie?
All right. So, like I said, the segue about my glasses, when I first put this movie on, I could not read the subtitles, and I was like, I'm not watching this if I can't follow along with the plot. Sure. So once I got my glasses, I was like, okay, I can watch this, and I can follow along what's going on. Why? Why did I do that? Didn't need to. So you touched up on it. Basically, the plot is farmers are getting invaded by these outsiders who are working on behalf of like a kingdom, and they're basically like sent there to be imperialists. And the farmers are like the good people, and like they need their tools to live, and blah blah blah, and they're held captive, which is very, very ironic. And the old guy who's held captive refuses to eat. Like he just turns his food into a little doll.
He becomes the first indie toy maker.
I was gonna say like real dog shit fucking articulation on this thing. Shinra Jira would definitely give this
an
half.
X.
Yeah. So it would not be up to his
no ball joints. Pulgasari figure he makes out of rice.
So like that's my favorite part of the movie is when they're chucking rice from like the ground through the window, and he's just like picking up and making it into a little ball with his dirty hands, and he doesn't even bother eating it.
Yeah. Also, at first, I had no idea they were throwing rice at him until like 4 scenes later. Like, oh, he made like this figure out of rice. And I was like, that was rice. I was like, all right.
So it's very weird how they're doing it. And so he makes the little Pulgasari doll, and then he dies. And he, upon dying, his dying wish is that Pulgasari watch over them and protect them and all that stuff. And so his son
And the monkey paw curls.
his son bleeds on it, and when the blood touches the,
It was the daughter, wasn't it? Wasn't it his daughter?
It's
the daughter.
unclear. So one of them bleeds on it, and Pulgasari comes to life. Very good articulation now.
Yes.
Amazed how they did that.
He's part of the Mezco 5 points articulation line at this point.
So he comes to life, and he's eating metal, and so he's eating like little needles, basically, that they're using to sew. And so he like the more like it's kind of the same thing over and over again. The invaders keep on invading. Pulgasari keeps on getting bigger and eating more metal and eating people. And
I don't think he eats people at any point.
I thought he ate one guy.
He jumps. Oh, when one of the farmer rebellion kids is about. I remember I kind of like actually laughed at the scene. It's the one where he's like about to get his like head chopped off. After like they have kind of put down the initial rebellion. He like Pulgasari is like probably like 3 feet tall. He like pops out of nowhere, does the run in for the save.
Yeah.
Eats the scimitar, and then like jumps up and like just like starts biting the dude's face off.
Yeah.
Was that the part you were talking about?
I thought he just like ate someone.
Oh, I thought he just like.
I might be confusing this with something else.
Oh well, he towards the end, he does technically eat the daughter at the end of the movie when she hides in the bell at the end of the movie.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
But he does bite a dude's face off in a part that did actually make me laugh out loud for how ridiculous it was that this like puppet was like thrown to this guy's face, and he had to like be like, "Oh my god, my face!" Ah.
But like, basically, as Pulgasari is getting bigger, he needs to eat metal, and that's how he grows strong. And so like, eventually, they just like defeat the invaders with the like. I'm not going to go into the nuts and bolts of this. You can watch this movie for yourself if you have the time and find out how he does it. But like, basically, they keep on concocting these plans to like stop Pulgasari, and like they think they work, but they don't. And so like, it just like, sort of keeps on doing that over and over again.
It feels like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah,
where he's like, "I got this giant cage you're gonna go in now. Now I'm gonna blow up the cage."
Well, they burned it, and then it didn't work, and then they dug a big hole, and it didn't work, and basically they lose, and then Pulgasari starts eating the farm equipment that they need. So Pulgasari is now their enemy.
Very like, I mean, he's just hungry, you know. But
Right.
they do paint it as like, oh well, that sucks. He's our enemy now. And I was like, well, I think he's just like eating, and then also like in one scene you're just like, oh, you are our enemy now, and then like the next scene a bunch of the farmers are like, well, it sucks, we gotta give him our farm tools, but like we don't want him to starve to death. He was our savior. So I was like, I think you're all kind of jumping to some brash conclusions here about whether he's your actual enemy or not. But okay.
But eventually Pulgasari turns to stone and dies, and there's I want to talk about a few things that did amuse me about this movie. Like, he crushes someone at one point, and like they don't show the crushing, but they just show like the aftermath with like all the blood
Oh,
and everything. And
yeah.
that was
I
pretty funny.
gotta add something to that. When I saw that scene, it's like, okay, so it's the evil general character that he squishes, and so that guy ran. He's like frantically running around this castle, like that Pulgasari is attacking. And I will say, I actually thought, well, I'll get to my positives later, but like there's like, so he's like frantically running around this castle, the Pulgasari is attacking, and he like gets caught in this like big yellow curtain and wraps himself totally around it. And as soon as that happened, I said, I guarantee Pulgasari is going to step on him. And that's just an easy way to achieve that scene, because if he's just wrapped in a blanket, you can just have that foot come down on like whatever, a bunch of stuffing or something like that. And sure as shit, that is what happened. And I was just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. But
so that's another thing about this movie is like the one good set piece they had was like, well, I guess the sets were fine, but like the giant foot they made for him,
yes,
it was like actually pretty detailed, and they got a lot of mileage out of that thing.
They did. Sometimes it's just standing up. Sometimes when he's laying down, it's just laying down. Did you like the suit though?
I thought as a design, it was fine. He looks kind of like King Caesar.
Yeah,
just like a less hairy King Caesar.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see that now. I like he did give you like a familiar vibe, and I think that's probably what it was. I actually really liked. I thought the suit was really good, but then like they also made like an animatronic head for some close-up shots, and that shit was like horrifying to see on screen. It was so goofy looking.
Yeah.
On screen, it was like Five Nights at Freddy type shit. Like whenever like that was on screen, I was like, oh my god, like, that's fucking terrible. And I also thought like when Kenpachiro Satsuma like was in the suit as Pulgasari, because there was someone different who might have actually been Minula's actor, might have played the shorter one. But when he was in it, like I was like, oh yeah, he is kind of moving like Godzilla, kind of like, and I thought that was cool. But Pulgasari doesn't really do much for the whole movie besides be like in the background, as like armies race off in front of him. Yeah. I was like, my head going like, I was like, did you just put him in the suit? Film him just like walking around for like 3 days and that's it. But like the one thing that was, I thought when he does attack that castle at the end, that giant castle miniature I thought was awesome. Yeah. And I thought him attacking it on the outside, I was like, oh wow, I was like, that looks really, really cool. Everything else in this movie, shit. But you know, that was really cool.
So one of the things I want to talk about this movie is like in that little documentary thing you sent me, they talk about how stylistically a lot of what the movies that they had made previously were very like melodramatic in nature, and I thought this movie was like a lot of like despair and crying, and like everything was either like, okay, we're surviving, we're happy, or we're being invaded, we're very, 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 very sad. And there was only like two moods. There was only very sad and not so sad.
Yeah, that's in my notes too. I was like, damn, people are constantly crying. And
like a lot of despair.
And did you see the part of the documentary? I forgot to mention this earlier, where they were recording Kim Jong-il. Like one thing he says, like he's like complaining about how everyone is just constantly crying in the movies, and he like wanted to get away from that. And then I was like, really? I was like, well, everyone's fucking crying in this movie. Like there is like one, I think it's like the little brother, one of the characters in this movie, I swear does not deliver a line without sobbing. Like I don't think they just say like one normal sentence. I think they are legitimately crying or like, sobbing through every line they say.
The kid who dies.
The kid. Which one was the kid who dies?
It was like halfway through. I forget which kid. The characters are.
Oh yeah. No. It was like one of the younger. No. It's one of the younger kids because he's crying in response. Like he has a line because he's crying in response to that kid dying. Yeah. Like yeah, it's just, yeah. That's the other thing too. Is like a lot of these like the editing in this movie is like shit. It's like you know, it's like there's no transitions from people covering great distances. Like in one set, but like there's also like no context either. Like no like verbal context or whatever. Like to them shifting positions. It's just like 1 second they could be like in this house in the village, and then all of a sudden like they're like miles away. Like one immediate scene later without like any sort of, you know, contextual clues either verbally or like some sort of like transitional scene. And I was like, and I often was like, yeah, there's like some like kind of like teenage 20-year-old, mid-20 type like characters, like they're kind of playing like the kind of like the initial like leaders, like the rebellion and stuff, and like they're like the hot-headed 20-somethings, and it's like you kind of lose track of them, you know, because of the shitty editing, and you, I mean, you can tell that, like, and I think it's well documented that the director and his wife were like, they weren't focused on making this movie, they were focused on getting like the fuck out of North Korea. And by all accounts, like, this is the movie like they put like no attention to, and that's why like it's so haphazard compared, like, I guess their other works are actually, propaganda aspect aside, are like regarded as like some really like well done stuff, and this is like kind of like the weird misstep, but you know, in context it makes sense, because like we're trying to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So question I have for you, because I thought I had looking at my notes, and like when the intro music played and a couple other times when there was like some synth music throughout the movie, I remember going, I bet KES is gonna like the music.
That's actually a good point. I totally forgot to bring this up. The intro music was really good, and some of the synth stuff was good. There was like almost like a westerny type of vibe to one of them, and like I was thinking in my head when I was listening to that part, I was just like, Pulgasari, like turning it into like a western type of song, like Canyonero. But like, yeah, the music is odd because it's set in like feudal times,
right?
And yet you have the synth type of music,
but filmed in 1985. No, so it's like
the filming of the timing of the filming is okay, but like, I'm just saying, like, for something set deep in like the distant past, why would you have like synth?
Yeah,
like, which is more of like a modern type of feel.
Right.
Like, you'd like, I get it for you if you're trying to make it like a futuristic movie like Blade Runner. Sure, that makes sense, but like, you'd think that they would have it more of like traditional instruments.
Yeah. To
cultivate the feeling of the times, but no, just a complete mismatch of styles.
Should have kidnapped a composer, I guess. But
well, like, that's not to say I didn't like it. I thought it was good musically. It was just, it didn't fit the motif.
As soon as that, like, it not fitting aside, as soon as I heard the synth music, I was like, oh, this is KES's alley. Like, for sure. This is this, like, they should have had Pulgasari. Like, I could see that music playing over Pulgasari being in the Hollow Earth, galloping towards charging towards like you know, that cave that like Kong goes to in the Hollow Earth. It was like giving me that vibes.
Yeah.
And like, what else was there in my notes? Because there was some stuff that like there was a Singapore caning scene at one point. I was like, oh, this is the Sandman caning Tommy Dreamer.
I was exactly what I was thinking of that. I totally forgot about that, but yeah, it was definitely thank you, sir. May I have another?
Do you remember there was the part where they were torturing the woman by like kind of like smashing her in the shins, trying to reveal where like the farmers were hiding? That was like halfway through the movie. That was like that was the second time the director has used that scene in a movie, and I was like, wow, I guess he just really likes these like shin breaking torturing scenes, like,
or maybe it was just something that was done to him, and it's sort of like,
yeah, it could be that
it's sort
too.
of like his own little protest.
Well, with the where I got that from was like, I watched like a video that was like talking about like how like he was kind of like trying to redo some things they did in South Korea, and they did like a side-by-side shot of how he filmed it in South Korea and then how he filmed it for Pulgasari, and then also, yeah, it probably was a thing that probably did happen to him at some point. Oh yeah, right. I was like also looking at my notes, and it was like asking somebody if they're all right when a dude had multiple arrows in him at one point. That was kind of funny. I forgot.
It'd be like, this is, I know you've never seen this, but in Fellowship of the Ring, when Boromir dies because the Uruk-hai shoots like 3 enormous arrows into him, if instead of coming over to him and checking on him and like giving him like peace as he's dying, if like if Aragorn just comes over and is like, Boromir, you okay?
Is that Sean Bean's character?
Yeah.
That happens too? I feel like I have seen that clip.
It's so good. Like, there's a shot where like you see how many Uruk-hai that Sean Bean killed, and it's just like a field full of dead bodies that he has killed single-handedly, and then like there's one Uruk-hai remaining with an arrow right to his face. It's so good.
I enjoy Sean Bean in films. So
Yeah.
the other thing that was in my notes was which I totally forgot about until I just looked at my notes and said, what the fuck with this exorcism? Because I forgot that they like one of the schemes is that they try to exorcise his connection to the blacksmith's daughter.
Yeah.
And they perform this like really jazzy exorcism to try to get that connection severed, which from what I recall doesn't really work because the daughter realizes at the end of the movie, she's like, well, the only way to stop Pulgasari is that like he's going to have to eat me. So she like rings a giant bell, then hides in the bell, and she's like, all right, Pulgasari, eat me and let's find peace together. So yeah, then he turns to stone, but then a baby Pulgasari appears and then like flies like and then comes across her body and then just like turns into a spirit and goes into her body, and then like a tear comes down her cheek because again everybody fucking cries in this movie. And so like what is that like? Are they just regenerated? Is this like a rebirth cycle? Like whatever. The movie, we never got Pulgasari 2.
Well, she stands up, she's all orange, and then she like does like this nuclear pulse, and like the little Pulgasaris like the form of the thing.
Someone was like, "You're a monster." I know. We probably would have got that answered in the Genghis Khan movie where he would have met Pulgasari probably at some point. We would have got like a North Korean Pulgasari franchise if they stayed.
What could have been?
Yeah. I also did add that Kim Jong-il had their names retroactively scrubbed from all future releases of their movies after they fled North Korea.
What a bitch.
Yep. What a bitch. So, if I remove the background to Pulgasari,
which is like, what I did when I was watching this. I was like, this is not a North Korean movie. This is just a movie I'm watching with no context.
There was some stuff in the first chunk of the movie that I kind of remember going like, you know what? I'm kind of into this a little bit, like the farmers' revolt and stuff like that. Like some of that was kind of entertaining. And then as the movie went on, I was just like, "Ooh boy, this is not good."
It just, I'll be honest, it just feels like they got like a couple hundred people to go into like a field and just like run around, and they're like, we're filming a battle scene, so just run around and like pretend you're LARP a battle for us.
LARP a battle. I'm sure they had lots of volunteers to those scenes. Emphasis or air quotes around volunteers.
Sure. Yeah.
I did actually read that like in another movie where like they did need a whole bunch of extras. Like Kim Jong-il was like, all right, well, you can just have like the army for like a day, and like they'll be like your extras to film these like battle scenes and shit. So yeah, that's like the other two though. It's like when you're watching like all these extras like run into battle and stuff like that. You're like, yeah, how many of you are choosing to be here right now? Probably not a lot. That was another thing too, is like it was also very confusing to tell like when like the big battles happened, like I had a hard time distinguishing who was part of like the evil overlords and who were the farmers, because it seemed like they were like,
okay, so it seemed like the evil people had like wild colors going on.
Yeah, but didn't it seem like then the farmers sometimes had it too when they didn't have it before?
I feel like the farmers sometimes had it, but they were more along the lines of like more muted, like natural colors that you would see in like everyday clothes, and like the invaders, like they felt like they had the more like they used like pinks and reds and yellows and blues to like emphasize how they were like outsiders.
Yeah,
and didn't belong there because they're like in the forest wearing like these loud ass colors.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like it was like people just didn't know who they were fighting at times.
Yeah,
like also it was like funny, like you would have like these people like swing swords at each other, and then like, you know, how do they sell the sword hit? They like do like a somersault. I was like, oh yes, that's exactly what happens when you get sliced by a sword like across like the chest. You do a forward flip. That's what happens.
Yeah.
But but Pulgasari is like not doing anything. He's just walking in the background in these fights. Oh, he does spit back a fireball from the cannons a handful of times. That was kind of funny.
He gets shot in the eye. That's funny.
Oh yeah, and he gets pissed after he gets shot in the eye.
Yeah.
Real pissed.
Well, that's another one of those things that they're like, shoot him in the eye, and they shoot him in the eye, and then they go like, ah, fuck.
And then his eye's fine, like a scene later. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, is he gonna be like fucking permanently blind?
Nope.
But I mean, what else? He did.
He doesn't know how to work an eye patch angle.
He didn't stay home for a month like the Sandman. But I liked it when he's like picking up like the cannons, and he's like these cannons that like were hyped up as like being like these like super destructive weapons. They do like nothing to him.
Yeah.
Picks them up, tosses them. Oh, they had like, and I don't know, maybe this is legit, but like they like had like missiles they were like shooting at him at one point, and I was like, I understand the logic behind like that kind of like using fireworks as projectiles. I was like, but these like are coming off as like straight up like modern missiles
Yeah.
that you are firing off here. Like, I don't know if that's historically accurate. I would call shenanigans perhaps in that, but I could be very wrong. Very, very wrong.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Just struck me as a little odd, if you will.
This movie? A little odd? No.
What else? What else we got to say about Pulgasari?
I don't know. I'm kind of out of Pulgasari. Oh, here's one thing I wanted to talk about too. So when they're looking for Pulgasari, they kept on saying Pulgasaria, and all I could think of is in that fucking Happy Gilmore movie when he gets run over by the bug, and the girl goes, "Happy look out!" Like, that's all I could think of.
Yeah, there was like some people. That was like another thing besides some people crying. Everybody repeats their lines about 100 times in this movie. Like, there are some characters who I think their only line is saying Pulgasari's name over and over and over again. And it just like, yeah, it's every time I like think of something that I like, which I think I like the way Kimpichiro played Pulgasari. I thought every time Pulgasari the suit was on screen, I remember looking at it going, yeah, that's a good looking suit. Good suit. Like how he's playing it. Like the castle smash. Everything else though, I was like, holy shit, like what? I don't know. The movie's bizarre. Is it like a movie that you would recommend people see because of how bizarre it is, or you go, it's too shitty, don't see it?
I don't know. I think if I'm talking to one of our friends who don't really go for these types of movies,
not them.
I'm saying stay the fuck away from this one.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to someone who like is into it and like they've seen like every Godzilla movie, every Ultraman TV show, then like I kind of feel like you have to see it.
Yeah, I feel like because of the story, it's like a novelty that I feel like if you want to get like kaiju history, I kind of feel like you got to kind of see it. But I feel like it's one of the few movies where I go, yeah, you also got to do some like reading around it to really fully.
I think understanding the context of the movie while not letting it impact your view of it is important because, like honestly, like I went into this knowing what happened, but I didn't realize it was like as bad as it was. Like I didn't know the girl, like that's how this all happened. Like she got to China and like they just picked her up immediately. Like her bags weren't even unpacked and like, she didn't take anything. And then like he went looking for it. I didn't know anything about that. I thought they just kidnapped this dude and made him make a movie and then let him go.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
I think a lot of people, think. I think like a lot of people we have like and I had this like too for a period of time where it's like you thought they were just kidnapped just to make this movie, and they escaped. Like you don't actually realize like
they were there for years,
and like they were like major popular people in pop culture.
Yeah, like
it's like they actually like it's like they even talked about it like in interviews. It's just like, like we were living like these like lavish lives, but like we're always prisoners at the end of the day.
Right.
It's crazy. It's so nuts. Like what they went through. And then you come out and you do Three Ninjas Kick Back. What a turnaround.
Yeah.
To do the second. Wait, you have the Three Ninjas trilogy DVD that starts with Three Ninjas Kick Back, right?
Yeah, so that starts with the second movie, which is really weird.
Yeah, I didn't realize you had so many movies that this guy made. It's crazy.
Big fan. Big fan. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say. Like, it's horrible how they got them to make this movie, and like, it's just if you have the choice between watching The Room twice back to back or this movie once, pick The Room. And I mean that.
Well, let's give it our star rankings then.
All right, I'll go first.
Sure.
It's 1 star is a jobber, 5 stars a main eventer. We do wrestling star rankings, and 2 is a lower mid carder, 3 is a general mid carder, 4 is an upper mid carder. Like a guy is almost ready to main event.
It's good that we explain it because the downloads are up. So we got some people who are probably hearing this for the first time.
Yeah.
So and we appreciate you.
For me,
listeners.
Solid 1, just all the way through. Like, there's stuff that like popped me, but like overall, like, and again, like I said,
popped me.
Like when the guy got squished wearing the curtain, like, I don't know, that just amused me. Like the blood,
yeah,
it's funny. Just the movie itself is just, it was made in the 80s, but you'd think it was made in the 50s.
That's a good point.
Like, it's just a bad movie. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like it's boring. It's repetitive. It's like everyone's a crybaby. I don't know how else to say. Like, I didn't like anybody in this movie. It was another one of those things where you're rooting for the monster because like everyone else is a crybaby and everyone else like just kind of sucks. Yeah, 1 star, firm 1 star. I can't even say, but a good one. I can't even make the joke. Like, it's just a bad movie. 1 star all the way. Don't watch it unless like you have to, like me.
There was like a part of me that was almost like, could I give this 2 stars just for like like in a vacuum for like it's like just so weird to watch and like but then I go, yeah, no, like a lot of it's not good. I think if I could just like the Pulgasari scene where he attacks the castle, that I thought was a fantastic scene. Yeah. And also I could not morally give more than 1 star to a movie that was the result of a multi-year long kidnapping and torture carried out by the North Korean government.
Right, exactly.
Just can't do it. But even like removing the international crimes, still just not a good movie.
Yeah.
Still just not good. So yes, I am with you. It's a 1 star. Part of it, it's almost like a little weird to me that like this does have like the cult following it does. It's like almost, it is also weird to me too that people have, I guess it's not weird, but it's like there are Pulgasari figures that exist.
Yeah.
Like licensed ones. And I go like, and I don't think like, I don't know, but I'm going to guess that like North Korea has probably not licensed those figures. I'm sure some people are just like, this is like no real copyright laws in North Korea. We're going to make figures of it. So, I don't know. I should actually look into that. Like, why are Pulgasari figures like made? Because I can't picture North Korea agreeing to any sort of merchandising deal for Pulgasari. So
even still, like, even if like they did, wouldn't that like technically be like funding terrorism? Is like or something like that? I don't know if it'd be like funding terrorism, but like funding like, I don't know,
the North Korean government,
aiding and abetting like a foreign like hostile government. Like, I don't know, there seems to be like some sort of like, if we were giving them any money whatsoever, there seems to be like, that'd be like breaking some type of law.
Yeah, I am guessing, without knowing the answer to this question, I am guessing that there was no North Korean involvement in the creation of those Pulgasari figures. Also, I forgot to mention, this is the second Pulgasari movie that was made in North Korea. The first one was is a lost movie though from the 1960s. So there you go, little bit of trivia I forgot in setting the table.
All right.
So yeah, this is a new one. Not a lot of movies we've watched for this podcast have terrible crimes attached to them.
So is this movie worse than Godzilla 98?
Are we aware of any crimes in connection with Godzilla 98?
I just mean like that's typically what we look at as like the worst movie we've done collectively for the podcast.
Yeah, I think actually of all the ones I've given 1 stars to, I don't even know if Godzilla 98 is my lowest 1 star.
What would be your lowest then?
It really bounces between. It might be like Megaguirus, maybe.
Your irrational hatred for that movie.
Oh, it's not. It's like it. I remember like when I said okay, like when it's coming up to do it for the podcast, I was like, you know what? I don't hate it. Like, oh no, I take it back. Peter Jackson, King Kong, like that's a movie like I have a hatred for.
Okay,
like I don't.
So let's because that's another 1 star across.
Yeah, no.
So let's get away from 98 because I was gonna say this movie's 98's way better than Pulgasari. King Kong.
Yeah, I have.
What's worse, Pulgasari or King Kong?
Peter Jackson's King Kong.
It's worse.
Yes.
Okay.
If you remove the crime aspect. If you include the crime aspect, yes, Pulgasari is worse.
I was gonna say this is the new worst movie we've reviewed. Because like there's nothing like awesome or good about it except for like when the guy gets squished.
The guy gets squished.
Everything behind the scenes is like a nightmare. At least Peter Jackson's was made with like love.
It's fair. Yeah, that's true.
It had Naomi Watts in it. So
all right, they're tied. I really fucking hate that movie.
Yeah, I don't like it. I remember thinking I was gonna like it when we watched it, and I would be like, "Oh no, I hate this movie."
Yeah.
But at least like So
yes, obviously, I'm not diminishing the terrible story behind it. Like just purely the movie itself. Like I could watch Pulgasari again before I could watch Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Oh, not me at all.
But that's if I'm looking at these things in a vacuum, like of the movies, and not the context around them. But yeah, that's just me.
All right. You've heard it here first. Slick thinks that Peter Jackson's King Kong is worse than international kidnapping war crimes.
That's not what I said.
Well, now that that's out of the way, you get any figs?
I got a t-shirt. 1 t-shirt.
I guess that counts.
Yeah, I got a purchase.
I guess this is a purchase section.
Yeah.
I just like saying figs.
Yeah, it's the gimmick. I was at Kohl's looking for... Bless you.
Excuse me.
Bless you. I was at Kohl's looking for something else and for somebody else. And I was like, oh, look at that. They have like a little Godzilla t-shirt. It's Godzilla 89. I got a black t-shirt. Bless you again.
Oh, all of a sudden I'm sneezy.
Yeah, it's okay. You'll get through it. And I got that t-shirt, and that was it. That was the only purchase I have since our last episode. But also, like last episode, I was kind of like coming off of buying a bajillion things in Japan, and I'm about to go to G-Fest. So, or by the time this episode airs, I will have returned from G-Fest, where I'm sure I will have some purchases then. Yeah. I was hoping we were going to have a high of figures Godzilla to talk about, but neither of our pre-orders are shipped, even though everybody else is kind of starting to get theirs.
Yeah, so I was going to say, that was going to be my segment for today. It was just like, I don't have anything, but like, I'm also between jobs, so I'm not going to do the penance purchase.
Yes.
I'll do a penance purchase
exempt.
once I'm back.
Exempt, yes.
But yeah, like I'm not annoyed. I guess I am a little annoyed because I'm seeing other people get them, and like I haven't even seen an update from them, like where we pre-ordered it from. Like nothing, like being like, hey, we know that people are getting these. Hang tight, they'll be there soon. Like nothing.
I believe the people who have received it so far, I believe they have received it specifically through one company there's like a number of different companies that you could have ordered it through.
Yeah.
And they specifically ordered it through one company that seems like they have gotten it and they have shipped it out. So I will keep that in mind for future purchases. It doesn't seem like I'm not going to like say who it was. And at this point, I'm not going to say who it was that we ordered from, but it seems like it's like specifically one distributor is is where all those are coming from right now. So, or one company or whatever. So
it just seems odd that happens to like, it happens so much, not even just for like Godzilla or like kaiju stuff, but like everything. It just seems like everything's just so disorganized and like it's a crapshoot on
figure distribution sucks these days.
It just seems really weird that like if you order it through one place, you're gonna have to wait. Like whereas like another place got it like immediately and like they got it out on time and everything.
Yeah, I really hate pre-ordering figures sometimes because they go like, I was like, sometimes if I just wait for it to come out, I can just like order it. Like as soon as it releases, I'm going to have it quicker than if I pre-order it. I feel like sometimes, but a lot of companies now, I feel like it's pretty much if you don't pre-order it, you don't get it ever. Like it's never going to not be just pre-order.
Yeah,
you know, and that kind of sucks.
Like I when it comes to that, like I have pre-ordered stuff from like September of last year, like that hasn't come yet. That was supposed to come beginning of the year, and it's still like,
what was that?
The Ultimo Dragon.
Oh, okay, yeah. The boss fights one.
Yeah. And I emailed them out. I was like, "Hey, you said early 2023," and like,
but those are out now, right? No. Oh, I thought for some reason I thought like the Vampiro one. Oh, I guess not. Never mind.
So like on their website, it still says pre-order only.
Oh, okay.
But that's what I was gonna say. Like, it says pre-order only, and then below it says like early 2023, and this is like beginning of June, end of May. I was just like, hey, you know, I'm starting to see photos of these things show up, but like I don't see anything updated. Like when we were supposed to get these, and they're like, oh, by end of summer. I'm like, so 12 months it's gonna take you from my pre-order to get it, and I'm like, I look at stuff like Haya, and like I pre-ordered that in March, and like we're gonna be getting that soon, I hope.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, what is the deal with like how this is done? Like, because a figure the size of the Ultimo Dragon one I have, it shouldn't take a year to get that thing out.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Haya one, which has like a ton of articulation, looks really good. Like that one seems to be out within 6 months. I'm like,
yeah, well, that one's like, it is like an update of like their last figure.
Right, but like it just seems like so much more has to be done to even make that thing.
Yeah, they clearly do. I feel like whenever we don't have purchases, I feel like we always go off these like good tangents about like figure collecting, which is good. But like, so like two things like is that like that you maybe think of as like I feel like there is a new trend amongst all toy manufacturers. Particularly like these like smaller ones that we get like all these Godzilla or kaiju things from, and like same thing like in the independent wrestling figure world that we buy a lot of stuff from. Like people will give you really ambitious release dates or release windows, like Q3, Q4, like, and you know, I'm going to guess they know really early on that they're not going to make those windows. Like you can't, like using boss fights as an example. Like what was it supposed to be Q1 of 2023?
Early 2023 it said.
I mean, you mean to tell me they don't know in November that they're not going to make Q1?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like your packaging's not done. Like none of that is close to done. You know that you're not going to make Q1, but they don't update it.
Yeah.
You know, like I appreciate what like Mezco does, where like they will give you a broad range, and they have always kind of hit it in that range. They may hit it like in the back end of that range, and there are a few times where they, as we get closer, they would update the projected release date in real time, like not, or you know, they would regularly update the projected release date, like on their website, like the Mechagodzilla King Caesar Godzilla Mezco set. Like right now, it still says releasing May to July. We're in mid-July. I'll actually be surprised if they don't make that July date because they seem to have been pretty consistent about it in the past. But I feel like I can count on them to go to their website and go, okay, I'm going to get a realistic update. And if they miss it, they don't miss it by much. But like it seems like there's a lot of toy manufacturers right now. They'll be like, oh yeah, you're going to get that shit like Q1 2023. And then, you know, here you are, you know, now like August, maybe, probably really like September, October for that figure.
Yeah.
You know? And then, then it's like the distribution problems. Like, I mean, Haya themselves said, oh, the figure's out. It's getting out there. We're sending out Like, I have no doubt that Haya has sent the figure out. Like, obviously they have, because some people have gotten it, but
it comes down to like the company sending them out and also the company receiving them. There's two companies that have to be organized to make this shit work, or else it isn't going to work. Like, who's to say like Haya did it and then the company that we ordered it through is just sort of like dealing with a bunch of other crap and can't be bothered.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Or who's to say that like Haya didn't send it and the company that we ordered it through does have their shit together and they're just sitting there like, what the fuck, dude? We're still waiting.
Yep.
Like, we don't know what's going on with it because it's just been like, it'll get out there eventually. And basically you just have to be patient and just sit there in your hands and wait. But I also think it speaks to something more cynical I've been noticing the trends lately with figure collecting, and it's not so much on the consumer end; it's more on the producer end, where I think over the past like 5 years, more and more people got into figure collecting because it was economical and widely available, and so there was two things: there was a lot of supply and the pricing was reasonable for the demand. So I think it was a perfect storm of like, yeah, I'll spend $20 on this nice detailed figure. Sure, no problem. And what's happened over the past, like, I would say like 3 years, like it kind of exploded. And now companies are viewing it as strictly money, like a capitalist venture and not something like it's nobody's passion project anymore. Now it's just sort of like a revenue stream.
Yeah.
And, I think that's led to an increase in prices and not necessarily an increase in quality. It's just been more like, we want more of your money because what we've been getting hasn't been enough. So you need to pay us more to keep getting this stuff. And it's just sort of becoming more and more cynical. And it's sort of, I don't know if it's pushing people away yet, but I think it's trending in that direction where people are going to take a look at stuff they were paying $20 for. And if all of a sudden you're paying like $35, $40 for that same exact thing, there's no real justification for it anymore.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, okay, the reason I was getting this was because it was economical. If it's no longer economical, my demand is going down. And if that happens and people are still like, whatever, like we're still going to be charging this much for it, you're going to be looking at people who stop making these things in bulk, and you're going to start seeing more of like one-off type of things being like, for what you see for like hardcore collectors in like the $1,000 range, where it's like, yeah, we'll make 600 of these, no problem.
Like the statues.
Yeah. But it's,
I don't do the statue trend.
Yeah, where they know that like they're gonna lure in like the most hardcore people to spend every cent that they could possibly bilk out of them on it.
Yeah.
That's not something like, there's that level of collector, and then there's people like me who are like, okay, if the price is good, I will get it. If the price isn't good, I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
And sort of like the higher thing is sort of right on the back end for me, where it's like, it's $50. Like, I'll swing that.
But it's a big figure.
Right.
A super articulated figure. I mean, you're getting more of a figure than we were getting with NECA.
Right.
You know, so to me, it's like the price point has scaled appropriately for like what you're getting. Like, it makes sense to me. Like, yeah, I mean, like, you know, those were like $35 figures. This is kind of like a bigger, jacked up version of that. Makes sense to me. I think the Mezco sets make sense to me.
Well, the way we talked about that is like, okay, yeah, you're spending $80 on it, but you're getting 4 figures.
Yeah, exactly.
So each figure works out to be $20, and so at the end of the day, it's economical still.
Yeah, and they're also like super detailed. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into them. You know, there's also like, it's like, I think there is a place for like boutique toys, or I'll call it like boutique, where it's like, you know, maybe they're limited to like a run of like 250, 300 or something like that. And they go, okay, yeah, like, you know, that's, they, you know, like there are some toy companies that like they'll do figures like that where it's like, and they get like a cool like see-through finish or something like that, or, and it's like, you know, they're limited to like 300, 400. When I hear that, I go like, okay, you know, that makes sense to me, because like you probably couldn't make or manufacture like 5,000 of those and sell them. So I understand why they cost so much, because less figures is going to cost more.
And that's what I mean. Like, that's sort of like, that's always going to exist for the hardcore fans.
Yeah.
And that's not for me. What I'm talking about more is like, Remember back a few years ago when Playmates was releasing like the GVK toys and everyone was scooping up every single toy they could
Sure, yeah.
to then resell for 3, 4, 5 times the price?
Yeah.
I think retailers and manufacturers saw that and they're trying to get ahead of that by just increasing the price of these things. So that way, like maybe we'll get fewer sales from like the reselling scabs, but like, you know, maybe more people will buy it that way. And to me, it's very cynical. It's a sort of like, if you want to sell this figure for $12 and sell it for $12, don't just make it $20 because like you can.
Yeah. Even like with like Bandai, like with like their movie monster series, like I know there are some they make limited runs of, but like it's like very inconsistent. Like their pricing on figures is like super inconsistent. It's not like I mean, it doesn't vary wildly, but it's like, okay, like, and I guess maybe it's good and bad. Like the anime Gamera from like Gamera Rebirth coming up, you know, that was like like, you know, the yen equivalent when I bought it in Japan was like a $20 something figure, or well, it was priced like that. But then like, you know, something else in the same movie monster series line, like could be $18, and then something else that gets released at the same time is $17. Sure. Then you get to the Ultraman stuff, and they're all like $5. And like, yeah, they're like a little smaller, like, and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm like, they're all big hollow plastic figures, like with limited articulation and certainly not a lot of paint.
What are you talking about? The tails are always painted.
And so I'm like, what? Like, I mean, I think they're all priced $5, but I just go I'm like, there's no consistent pricing.
Yeah.
Across the board with them. Like, they're always kind of like in a range. But I don't know. That is what it is. I just kind of wish there was like more independent companies like making cool kaiju toys. Like on the wrestling side of our collecting, we got a ton of that going on. Yeah. And it's mixed results, but I mean, it's cool that there is that much going on. And you know, like Titanic Creations is doing that Gorgo figure that looks awesome.
Yeah.
And like, I wish there was more companies like them that could like be putting out these other like, you know, lesser known kaiju that aren't tied up or monsters or whatever, that could put out like some sort of, you know what someone should do? Like, they should make a Trendmasters style line that's in scale with all your Trendmasters figures for all like the non-Godzilla, Gamera, Ultraman kaiju that like their licenses can be scooped up.
Yeah.
They make them all Trendmaster style. They're all on the juice. They're all on the roids.
I think I'm down for that as long as like they're not like put into that like bilk people for all they're worth. Like okay, so that happens. How much are you paying for those figures? Not how much are you willing to pay. How much are you go to a store, you see it on the shelf. How much is it on the shelf?
Well, I mean, if it's an independent company, it's probably gonna be like $30.
No. I just mean like you go to a store, you look at it to the shelf. In your mind, what should that price point be? Because I know exactly what it should be. To me, if I'm looking at it,
I probably like $20-$25.
I'm looking at thing $14.99.
I guess I'm thinking
putting it right in line with those new Ninja Turtles that came out.
Oh,
those are like the perfectly priced action figure. You get a ton of like weapons. Yeah. They might not be the best quality, but they look good and they're cheap. That's perfect. That's exactly what you should be doing. You shouldn't be going out there trying to bilk people for $25 for something that's 4 inches.
Yeah. I guess I was thinking more like the detailed, articulated Trendmasters ones. I guess in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, it's probably like $20 figures these days.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is like have more uniform on like getting something to the consumer that's not going to break the bank.
Yeah.
Because like at this point, I feel like it's not going to be like a figure recession, I don't think, but I think people are going to start, like I've already started doing this where I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's cool, but I don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just going to keep on happening to people. Like more and more like obscure figures keep on getting released for higher and higher prices. And what's happening is like it's turning people away from it. I think at this point, like 5 years ago, people were getting into it. Now people, I think, are getting out of it.
I think there would be more goodwill from the consumer if some of these companies could be like very transparent about costs. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I don't think people need, like, a consumer needs to know about costs. I think a consumer needs to get something that's cost efficient. And if something's like if you put those,
well, I don't mean like Mattel. You know what I mean? I don't mean like Mattel or Hasbro are going to be transparent. I'm talking more like the indie people.
That's what I mean. Like even them, I don't think we need to know about their costs. I don't think it's my responsibility as a consumer to know how much a figure is going to cost someone to make. I think it's up to the company to make it cost efficient for me, so I buy it and I don't have to think about those things. Because if you're like, I'll use Super 7 as an example. Those things are overpriced to hell. The reaction figures are overpriced. The higher end figures are overpriced. And why do they do that? Because they want your money. It's like, you look at take the wrestling figures, for example. You look at other companies that have more of a backing behind them. They're releasing figures for $22 now. Those same figures through Super 7 would be $50 or up.
Yeah.
And not necessarily the best quality either. So why are they so expensive? Well, we're a smaller company and we need this, that, and the other thing. Well, it's just kind of like, well, it's not really consumer friendly then. It's more company friendly for that price point. And that's what I'm saying is like, you need to rein in some of those like people who are trying to maximize their profits, because I think you would sell more and make more if you had more reasonable prices overall.
Yeah.
And it would appeal to a larger
I was
audience.
more talking about like the, like on the wrestling side, putting like in the wrestling figure collect, like a zombie sailor type company, like going like that's a tiny company,
Right?
And like, you know, like those figures cost like $40,
$40 a piece, yes.
And I think he has been on podcasts going like, he's like, you know, it's like to manufacture each of those figures is like almost like $30 or something like that. And like when you hear that, you're like, okay, like I can understand that pricing. Super 7 I think is too big now at this point. Like they are not Mattel, they are not Hasbro. I understand that they don't have the purchasing power.
Retail stores.
But they are getting to the, like, when I see the reaction figures for just Godzilla go up in price, and I go like, you know, I was okay with like your $18 to $20 price point, and I'm making them $25. And like a lot of these are like reusing the same molds, just modifying old molds, because like you get like 3 more Godzilla based figures. And like the molds are like kind of the same for the most part. Maybe you get a mold like new heads, and maybe like, you know, but for the most part you're using like the same body and legs that you've already used a couple times over. Like the whole point of that is that's supposed to save you money, that you don't have to create new molds. Yeah, you know, but instead you just increase the price. So, and then like,
and that's where it comes to like the cynical aspect of it, where it's not about getting a consumer friendly product out to the masses. It's about getting as much money you can out of people.
Yeah. It's like that, like when you start going up like that, then I go, yeah, like that I'm not on board with. And then like their Godzilla and Godzilla 89 Biollante Ultimates are like starting to get out there, and like those things look terrible. Like they look like shit. And like those things are like $80-$90 or something like that, or maybe even like a little bit more. Like they look like shit. You know, it's like
yeah, they're Andre the Giant that came out looked terrible. And then, like, you see Mattel release a $10 figure of the same exact thing, and it looks 100 times better.
And also, like, staying on Super 7, like, you know, we gave a lot of shit to, well, like, in our, you know, privately talking, like, to Matt Cardona and Brian Myers, like, their new figures coming out that were, like, they went up to $75 instead of being $40. And, like, they've openly discussed on their podcast going, like, yeah, we didn't know it was going to be $75. Like, they said all the deco hits that like had to go into the figure, they told us the day before they announced the price. They said that all the deco hits that we asked for drove the cost up, and they had to release the figures for $75. And they said we never would have done it,
which is
we
crazy.
Knew it was going to be $75.
Their previous figures had a ton of accessories. You're telling me you could keep it for that price for all those accessories?
It was the paint,
but now like a little bit of paint is is going to make it $20 more. It makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we don't make figures. We don't know the ins and outs of it. It's just like it doesn't pass like the eye test.
But that's the whole point. Like we shouldn't have to make figures to understand the price point of the figures we're buying. We're just collectors. So if you put something out there for $75-$100, that's like the same quality that you could get elsewhere for $20. Why are they costing this much?
Yeah.
What's the justification for it? And I really don't see any good answers from any companies out there, aside from, well, we need to make money on this.
Yeah. I mean, there are some times, though, when you get like a figure from one company and you hold, like, now granted, these aren't the biggest price disparities, but like putting the paint aside, you get a figure from Bandai and you hold that in your hand, and you get a figure from Playmates and hold it in your hand, you go like, oh, okay, yeah, the Bandai one is like head and shoulders quality better. You know what I mean? You go, okay, I'm gonna pay for the quality. Like, you get it. Like, you get a little
But
bit
even
more.
still, the difference is minimal. Like, Bandai, you're paying $20.
Oh,
Playmates,
yeah,
you're paying
price-wise.
12, 13.
Price-wise, yeah.
Like, that's a justifiable price difference, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I was saying, like that Andre the Giant figure from Super 7, that's $40-$50, and then you have the basic from Mattel that's $10. The Mattel is 10 times better than the Super 7 figure. What is the justification for this price? Why do I need to pay that much for it?
I think
there is none.
I think the best Godzilla equivalent is going to be Hiya Toys is $50. Why is SH Monster Arts like $80 to $90 all the time? And it seems like initially, like,
Sure. No, I agree with this.
like with like a way more quality control in the Hiya figure, like less. It's what seems to be, because we don't have ours yet, but it seems to be, better paint applications, just similar articulation.
The SH Monster Arts Godzilla figure I have, like, that's the one thing I like about it is the paint. Like, I think this.
Oh yeah,
I think it looks really cool.
But you've
with
probably
the
seen
paint.
a lot of reviews where it's like it's bad on some.
No, I've like even when I reviewed that thing, I was just like, look at this thing. Like, there's holes everywhere. You
Yeah.
can see through the legs.
Yeah, and it wasn't always like that. I have the I think it was the very first SH Monster Arts figure, which is like Godzilla 94, and like that. I mean, that figure, I pick it up and I go like, oh my god, like this thing is like incredible.
Yeah.
And when I've seen newer SH Monster Arts figures, I look at them and go like, I can't believe you're from the same toy line.
Yeah,
I was like,
like,
because you're just not.
Another thing about the one that I got is like, I'll show it to you. So basically, like right at the groin where the groin meets the tail, like there's a little, like, it's not connected. It's just like loose.
Mm.
Like, you can see it.
Oh, yep.
Like, it's a
Yeah.
flap. It's like
Yeah.
up. And like, why?
Yeah.
Why can't you just like bend that back a little bit and make it look like flush?
Yeah. This is.
And then you realize, oh, it's because it's like touching the tail, so or touching the leg. So to move the leg, they needed to have this thing lifted up, and then they never bothered to like reapply it so that like the tail would connect to it. It's like, I'll just leave it loose and flapping, so that there's a big like open area in the where the groin meets the tail, where you can see like it's not even even.
Yeah.
It's like off to the side. I'm like, wow, you guys really didn't care about this at all, did you?
Yeah. That's why I don't do SH Monster Arts, but.
But like, that's what I'm talking about. Is like your quality is going down, your prices are going up, and like people will support you if if you're gonna make a $60 figure, make a $60 figure. Don't make a $20 figure and then charge people $60. It's basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go all out, then go all out and make sure that you're giving the customer a quality product. If you want to make a $20 figure, like look at the NECA, like that's fantastic for that amount of money. That's why I got them all. I was just like, I can afford all these. I can display them. They look great. Like, it was the perfect storm. Where I'm looking at now, I'm like, okay, now they're like $35-$40. Don't need to get everything, do I?
No.
And so, like, that's a completely different attitude than what I used to have. Whereas, like, I want to get all these because they're all affordable, and like every time there's a new one out, I'm going to go to the store and get one.
Yeah. There's just certain there's just certain lines I just swear off. Like, yeah, SH Monster Arts is one I've kind of sworn off. Just, I'm not going to pay that much. Like, if all the things we just were complaining about like weren't there in those figures, like the gaps, the weird paint issues, I would totally buy more. But I'm not like, like whenever I see a company do something like that, like, I mean, I'm just one person, but it's like vote with your wallet. Like, if you are not going to have quality control in your figures, then you're not going to get my money.
Yeah.
And I'm just one person, but I hope, like, I mean, if they tightened up like how they made those figures, like, I would totally buy more. I wouldn't buy them all, but I'd buy more.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to have like a super ridiculously articulated Godzilla Ultima. I would love that.
Yeah.
But like when I see like people like reviewing it and it's like the jaw can't even close lined up, and like you got paint on the teeth just like smudging all over the place, and I go like, yeah, I'm not gonna buy that. Like that's like I'm not gonna reward you for half-assing it and thinking that like you can just get away with that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's just, I don't know. We're mad as hell and we're not gonna take it anymore.
And that's like the crux of what I'm saying too, is just reel in your prices and make it more consumer friendly, and put out products that the consumer will like to buy that will last, and not something that they're gonna look at like once and just be like, okay, I got it just because I wanted it, and now it's there and now it's forgotten.
I'll tell you what hasn't gone up in price. Bag clips. Those Godzilla bag clips have not gone up in price.
See? But like, you got them all.
Got them all except for one. Which I'm going to have to pay a premium price for.
Sorry, yeah.
But yes, I do get them all as they come out. Yes.
And why do you afford, like, why can you afford all of them? Because they're what, $3?
No, they are about $6 a piece.
$6 a piece. Okay.
Yeah.
So $6 a piece times
you get a whole set basically for about $50, $55.
I was gonna say you've been collecting these for like 4 years now, so 600 over what, 4, like it's gonna wind up being like $600 in the long end over 4 years to collect something that you like.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, okay, over 4 years, that's pretty minimal.
Yeah.
I bet you I spend close to that in 1 year on like guitar accessories and
Sure.
strings and picks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So like over 4 years, you're barely spending anything, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So that's what companies should focus on, is getting things out there that are affordable, that people can buy and like in mass, rather than making these like things that are very niche that only a few people will like and that you're going to charge an arm and a leg for.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to drive collectors away the more and more you do it.
Yeah. I think, Playmates, I think is kind of hitting a little bit of a sweet spot. I think they need to update their legendary Godzilla mold a little bit. I think like I like the one that they put out where it's like the poster version of like the 2014 Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, it's like this is like a way better mold than like what your your standard legendary Godzilla is. Even though he's just like in a weird pose, it's like a cool pose, like a one-off.
Yeah.
And I was like, you need to kind of like play with this sort of mold, because we've been getting that same, like, I don't know, the Playmates legendary Godzilla figure is like, it's fine, but it's also like so oddly blocky. I would really hope that they make a new mold for what I assume will be the Godzilla and Kong line when it comes.
Yeah. I don't know how into that I'll be. Like, I'll probably get like a few of them, but like, I don't know.
We all say that now.
If I see them in stores and they're
actually, I take it back. I'm not saying that. I'm going to buy them all. So I don't know why I was pretending at all there.
With me and Playmates, it's always been sort of like, if I see it in stores, it looks good, I'll get it. I think the only ones that I've gotten that weren't in store were, what was it? It was the I'm drawing a blank. I ordered one. I think it was the Gorosaurus.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think I ordered that first and then saw it in stores later. But other than that, like every single Playmates figure I got was, no, it was the Mothra. That's what it was. That was Bandai anyway, so it didn't even matter. So I'm pretty sure I got every Playmates in stores, and I was like, if it looks good, I'll get it. Because I've seen Playmates in stores that looked like dog shit. I didn't get, like the Destroyer one. I was just like, don't need this one.
That first wave of Playmates figures. That was what time? Oh god, getting that Space Godzilla and the Destroyer and that first Shin Godzilla. Oh, fantastic!
Just what a weird, like, and then they have like the Final Wars Gigan, which was like perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was just so good.
It's such a weird, yeah. And they kind of recovered, but now that line's dead, then
yeah, R.I.P. that line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, that stank stayed on him for a long time, long time. Yeah, it's weird they do so well with the turtles, but whatever. Anyway, anything else to bring us home?
We didn't really talk about the U.S. Godzilla store. I just realized in the opening segment we kind of got distracted with the.
Well, we don't really have
Minus
much
One.
to talk about. I mean,
It exists, or
Yeah,
it's going to
or it's
exist.
going to
Do you know
exist.
where it's going to exist?
I
was assuming L.A., Chicago, or New York.
actually think it's just like an online Godzilla store.
Oh, that'd be awesome!
That's what I think. It's just an online Godzilla store.
Perfect. Sign me up.
Yeah, I did not think it was actually physical location. I thought they were just like, I read it as, oh, all the stuff we sell in the Godzilla store in Japan, we're going to make a US website to sell, which is like, like you can go to the Godzilla store Japan website and buy all the same shit they have in the store. So I just assumed they're just making it a US website.
Okay. I thought they were making like a physical store.
Oh, I don't know. That's not how I took it, but
Okay.
I mean, also don't think it was like super clear. So, I mean, maybe we'll probably have more information. I'm gonna guess like the next like couple weeks. So,
All right.
because I read it as, oh, cool, we're getting like a US website, like integrating Bai into the Godzilla store in Japan website was step one. Now it's just full blown. Here's your US Godzilla store. So,
Gotcha.
yeah. So I guess next, because the poll tied, very rare tie, we will do a MST 3K episode again with the giant Gila monster.
I've seen this before, so this will be fun.
This is a classic
Yeah.
MST 3K episode. Classic MST 3K episode.
It'll be a nice palate cleanser for me.
Yeah. And I will have some G-Fest updates.
Nice.
Maybe I'm trying to debate like should I record like at the end of the day at G-Fest, like try to go back to my hotel room going like, all right, here's my day one recap that we splice in. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do that,
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll try to get some man on the street content. We'll see.
Yeah, if you want to do that, send anything you get my way, and
My journals, my end of the day journals become they start off normal and they be just like it's like lunacy sets in by the end of the weekend.
it's like reading all the things in Resident Evil games.
even though I'm just there for like 3 days. 2 nights and 3 days.
It's you ever play Resident Evil 1, the original
Yes,
game?
yeah.
Like, there's a note you can find from someone who's just like turning into a zombie over the course of several
Oh
days.
yes, yeah,
and like,
yeah.
And like you see him like start to like be like, oh, he smelled so good.
Yeah.
And then it just basically turns into him writing like food, like yum, like here come Matt, yum, I like Matt,
Yeah.
yum.
Yeah, it could be like that. We'll see how that goes.
But yeah, anything else you want to leave the listeners with on this 90-degree summer day?
No.
Me neither.